Your sensation of being betrayed, or well, feeling betrayed in a relationship or even in a marriage, cannot oftentimes be a self-fabricated construct. Yes, this can at almost all cases be a sad result of expectations from other people. See, having expectations in life is something good because they can act as good anchors in reality. But the big point, the big problem that many people have is how much can one expect of things before that turns into a unhealthy expectation. Yes. But oftentimes people don't care much about themselves, so obviously caring about others, well, or pretending that they do care about others can feel like a juicy distraction. When you pretend to care about others, well, technically you end up having more like expectations of others. Many people end up in such situations because they have not learned enough inner maturity of the psyche, emotion, even of their mind. And when they end up in such situations, even without knowing, in many situations it is just like that. They are not knowing. They have certain broken parts within themselves. They don't know how to arrange those, how to make those work again. So they may end up in situations when they actually, well, get into a relationship and they just expect the other person to fix them, yes, to solve their problems, but at the same time, they won't communicate much. Why they won't communicate much is because, well, communication would actually have them assume more responsibility. Yes, you're getting more in touch with the other person. You're, strengthening the bond more or less when you talk. And many people are shallow because they have given up on their inner child, they have given up on their emotions, so are they just feeling like dead men walking. When people feel like this, obviously nothing else is more important than the survival of their own psyche, the survival of their own self. Yes, the self, preserving the self becomes the utmost part of survival for those people because they are disconnected from their emotions. So, also, secondarily, they are not much in contact with their psyche as well. So, they only live a mental life, yes, a life full of illusions. The mind is the only thing they will trust, despite the fact that the mind is the most volatile part of one's existence. Yes, it can create and recreate and invent even without the consent of the one using the mind. Yes, it is a powerful tool, but unfortunately, a lot of people end up the slaves of it. Yes, when people are no longer in tune with their emotions, they no longer have the main guidance that a human body has. And also, their psychological part can no longer distinguish between something that they like or dislike. Because the psychological aspect of one's existence is just that. You either like a situation or you don't like it. So people end up in that state of feeling dead because there's literally nothing that they perceive. They are disconnected from their emotions. And they also end up in that situation where they kind of feel it feels impossible for them to figure out whether they like something or don't like something. So the moment something gives them a bit of emotion, yes, they will simply become obsessed with it because finally they feel alive. And a lot of people, unfortunately, finally feel alive in a toxic relationship. Yes, it could be a parasitic one, like a narcissistic like being with an emotional person or someone who still has some emotion left, or it could be even two narcissists that find a relation together that can be extremely magnetic. Yes, and the problem in many such situations, yes, where people don't care enough about themselves, is that that is more like a relationship. Because when people don't care much about themselves and they build unhealthy expectations of others, that only becomes a race. Yes, it will become a race of who will leave the other one. Yes, which will feed in a way the fear of betrayal. Your fear of being betrayed is technically nothing else than your fear of losing control over the other person. Yes, over losing the grip or the stability that you started imagining that the other person will bring to your life. So technically, such relationships end up more like a race in which both arm themselves up with more and more thoughts because they live in the mind. Yes, they create army of thoughts to support the idea that one day they will actually be betrayed. This is how it is slowly and surely built, because every time their little expectations or even their big expectations are hurt, well, the point is that will act as a, in most cases, or in many cases, a false uh, positive of the fact that the other person doesn't care much. In many situations, it is projection over the other person. But it can also be own insecurities, yes, projection on others, but it can also be, well, the reality. In many cases, people won't care much about the others because they don't give a damn care about themselves. Yes? When people are nothing else but, not driving the car of their life, yes, they are just a passenger, they are just an onlooker. Every or many of the relationships that they have will be just a race who victimizes first, who turns the other one into the villain so they can victimize and leave. Yes? And thus, well, ghosting will appear when people no longer feel worthy of the other one's person's presence, yes, of the other one's presence. Why? Because many people get used, they get abused, yes, and they get comfortable sooner or later with that script because it goes on and on again. And when that happens, they have an expectation to be treated the way they have learned till then. That means in abusive ways or things like that. Which, well, translates to the fact that should you want to treat them nicely, well, they will feel like shit. They will feel even worse because it's technically against their script. It is against their comfort to be nice. So they will abuse you more just because they want you to remind yourself, they want them to remind you how to treat them and how they like to be treated, because the way you treat others obviously is the only way that you want to be treated. Yes, it's always a mirror effect. And people, unfortunately, especially the one who are more feeling based, well, they feel that they have not done enough and that they need to overdo. So they will be even nicer, which will, well, compel the other person to either abuse them more or to simply run away because they are not feeling worthy of that treatment. And, well, they might actually become even more aggressive, more abusive, or they will simply ghost that person because, hey, they are not feeling worthy of that kind of treatment. And the other person might feel betrayed. But narcissists do that ping pong effect of theirs, where they just come back suddenly and they're overflowing with so-called love, and they love bomb their target again, and then they feel hot again and they feel liked, yes, and then suddenly the narcissist is reminded that they're not worthy of such treatment because they perceive the world in the opposite way. They feel that they are not they are not worthy of anything, because the narcissist is, or people like that, they are the epitome of pain. They are causing most of that on themselves. They are literally creating a black hole within their existence. Well, not a literal one, but they're technically creating a force that constantly keeps pulling them back to the overcomfort that they are designing within their world. Yes, they are designing a world where the only thing that they are worthy of is the constant pain that they have learned, as well as any means to avoid running from that pain. Yes, it's the same thing that they will do for the others. A world where they cannot live without a narcissist, and at the same time a fear of even thinking to avoid the abusive world. Yes? And, well, it's nothing else but insecurities and projections. So hopefully this video raised a bit of awareness. You are appreciated, take care, enjoy life. This being said, Ferencan Board signing out.